Hello, Dr. Madrill, and today I want to present to you about how to conduct user interviews. This will be a self-contained training module that will take approximately 20 minutes in time to train our team on the easy tricks you can do to get the most unique insights from our interviews. From an institutional goal, what we want to do is be able to do two things. What we want to be able to do is to show where our value add is to the industry that we are in, from our existing assets and from our existing innovations, and also to be able to look at where we can actually improve. The reason for this is self-explanatory. As we all know, there is increased competition in the federal contracting market here in Washington, D.C. There are constantly new startups and there are constantly new and small businesses that are looking to take part of our business in the particular area. That, in addition to the fact that several of our major contracts are up for review. Normally these contracts last for several years, but when they're up for review, as you know, they are often bids from companies from all over the area. So we have the greater responsibility to have to show we have been good custodians of this contract and we are worth renewing with. Likewise, and I don't need to remind about stagnant business, and that is that without good interviews and without understanding where our value add is, our products will slowly begin to look like those of our competitors. So we need to be looking at how are we actually preventing losing our identity. Our instructional goal here is to develop a straightforward, practical, hands-on training module that will show people how they can improve their interviews without having to be experts in the area by looking at three particular areas of training. One will be how do we prepare for interviews, another will be how do we ask better questions, and then finally, how do we manage the directions of our interviews. This particular training is going to be directed towards those people that have touch points with our products and our services, namely the UX design team, our sales team, our comms, and all the project managers who are responsible for the quality of our product and implementing user stories and adaptations when the needs occur. The particular tasks that we'll be looking at in this training are threefold. One of them, as I mentioned just a minute ago, is how do we create clear goals, which is to say, basically, how do we go into this training knowing what we want to get at the end of an interview. From there, we're going to look at how do we improve the kinds of questions we ask by looking at the nature of open-ended questions, structured interviews versus semi-structured interviews, and then, of course, the right time and situations to use follow-up. Likewise, from there, we will cap this training by looking at how do we apply specific interviewing management strategies. These particular strategies will help us to keep on track towards the intended goals that we created before we began the interview. From there, we're going to look at our particular objectives that we have for this training. Objective 1 from our taxonomy is going to identify the best practices of interview preparation from a user research case study. So what we'll be doing in this case is we'll actually be looking at how we can get our participants to know what information is needed and to be able to look and to see and to identify what particular things occurred that were correct and what things occurred that were not correct. As we see here to the right, you'll measure success by watching videos of different interviews, and we will give feedback. And that feedback will be driven largely by them identifying the aspects that we want them to be able to know. If they don't know those things, it's very difficult to be able to ask more from them from higher levels of taxonomy, such as evaluation and creation, which is exactly what we'll be doing in Objective 2, where we'll asking them to essentially critique recorded interviews and be able to identify what were the strengths and what were the weaknesses. In these particular aspects here, we'll measure success by having them provide feedback on particular things that they had done with regard to the interviews and looking at how they prepared and how they managed conversations. We'll also be asking them to point out areas that would need improvement. Lastly, objective 3, we're asking them to create their own interview of their choice. These will eventually be uploaded and look for review by staff and teaching faculty. And within there, we will look at all the elements of the particular training, and we will be finally submitting a mark based on their ability to implement these skills. Particular student resources that we'll need to develop this training is we'll need to be able to record mock interviews that will eventually be uploaded to an LMS. We'll need to be able to create quizzes and questionnaires to create micro competencies and to more or less concept check certain aspects to ensure mastery and ensure that they stay on course. And finally, I'd like to use Adobe Activate to create interactive slides that will bring to life some of this information, really lift it off the page. And then finally, I'd like to have a feature on the LMS that we'll use that will provide teacher reviews and the ability to submit work to a particular training staff. How we'll develop this module? We will need about a month. We want to spend time working with our SMEs, our subject matter experts, to iterate on the design and develop the needs of the students. Much is used with the ADDIE model. We want to use a methodical approach that helps us to understand what they need, what is the particular situation, what do they desire from a training, what or how previous trainings might have fallen short, and to design and develop training that is customized to their particular needs. We will use this departments that will be initiating this. We'll be working closely with the communications department, UX design team, and of course project managers. Okay, students need to take this course. Okay, they will need to have these uploaded to an LMS, as I said. We will need to have these quizzes and we'll need these slides. So all of this information is something that we'll be creating with our SMEs and in accordance to their needs. Okay. So we will develop it in this regard. And we thank you for listening.